Hello guys, welcome back. My name is Nathan, and today we're going to be discussing 5 Jack Eichel trades that can actually happen. Now, Elliotte Friedman went on radio recently and basically said the possibility of Jack Eichel getting dealt is a lot more likely with the Buffalo Sabres' bad start to the season. But how likely is it that Jack Eichel will actually get traded soon? And if he is going to be traded, which teams will go after him, and what trade could we possibly see? Watch till the end for all of the trade rumors and all of the picks, and hit that subscribe button if you're new. We have basically 70% of the people that are watching these videos that are not subscribed, so every bit helps on the road to 32k subs, and we love you to subscribe for more hockey content just like this. Now, we don't obviously know if Jack Eichel totally wants out with the Buffalo Sabres, but it's the worst kept secret in the world that Jack Eichel does not exactly love the losing that's going on with Buffalo, and there was a lot of trade rumors this past offseason that if the Buffalo Sabres were to miss the playoffs or be embarrassed again in the standings or be one of the worst teams in the standings once again, that Jack Eichel could want out of Buffalo and could eventually want to trade. And that's exactly what we're going to be touching on in today's video. 5 destinations that Jack Eichel could be trending towards if we do see a trade. 5 of the most likely destinations in my opinion, and the trade offers as well that will go the other way. Now, when it comes to the 2 teams right now that we do know have looked into Jack Eichel and are interested in him, we have the New York Rangers and the Los Angeles Kings. And we're going to touch on those 2 teams to start out as well. And we're going to start out with the New York Rangers, a team that is in desperate need of a guy like Jack Eichel, a center like Jack Eichel, a guy that could absolutely be dominant at a whim and just be a spectacular player that could really center a guy like Alexis Lafreniere or a Capo Caco and just be a truly amazing offensive threat. I think the New York Rangers might be the best bet in terms of a team that has the room for him, wants a guy like that, has the space for a guy like that to play, and also has the prospects, the picks, and the amount of surplus that the New York Rangers have. They have so much to work with and a lot of assets that the Buffalo Sabres could want. And as I go through each and every team we'll list off in today's video that I think could trade for Jack Eichel, we're going to go through the offers and what I think a trade could eventually look like. And with the New York Rangers, there is a ton of young options that the Buffalo Sabres want, and you'll see a trend in this video that I think that the Buffalo Sabres are going to trade Jack Eichel. It's going to be just fully set on the rebuild mode and fully go in that direction, because I don't really see a trade whatsoever where they win the trade first, but win the trade if they're going for now players. I think for the most part, they're going to look for prospects, high picks, and high draft surplus. And for the New York Rangers, thankfully, they have quite a bit of that. For my mock trade of Jack Eichel going to the New York Rangers, Jack Eichel will go to Broadway, and in exchange for the Buffalo Sabres, they will acquire 2nd overall pick Capo Caco, Ryan Strome, Vitaly Kravtsov, 1st round pick from 2018, Nils Lundkvist, another 1st round pick from 2018, and a 2022 1st rounder and a 2022 2nd rounder. I think for the New York Rangers, this is an asking price that they can give up. Capo Caco is the big one, but you also got big time prospects in Nils Lundkvist and Vitaly Kravtsov. But I think for the New York Rangers, this is what it really is going to take. It's going to take a lot of big time firepower to get an amazing center in Jack Eichel. And let's be honest, Jack Eichel would be, with Artemi Panarin, the 2 best New York players that they've had in a very, very long time. And even though you guys know I'm a huge Capo Caco fan, for the New York Rangers, players like Jack Eichel don't come around too often. And I think for the asking price, especially to trade, it's going to cost a pretty penny. Now, giving up Capo Caco, guys like Kravtsov, guys like Lundkvist especially, is going to be very, very hard for them to give up. But again, that type of asking price is what's going to need to happen in order for this to actually have a trade here. For the Buffalo Sabres, I mean, they don't have to trade. They don't have to trade Jack Eichel, their captain. They could obviously keep on to him, but it's going to have to take an asking price like this, a whole package like this, for a deal to go through. I think if the New York Rangers offer this up, I think the Buffalo Sabres say yes, and Jack Eichel will be a New York Ranger. It could happen as easy as that, but those prospects are pretty major. And even though as a person who likes the Rangers, this is a lot to give up, you're getting a guy like Jack Eichel who, once again, doesn't come around too often. This is a top 10 center, a guy that when he's on his game is one of the best offensive players in the entire league, and having him with a guy like Artemi Panarin, having him with a guy like Pavel Buchnevich, having him with a guy like Alexis Lafreniere, that would be absolutely dirty, and he would be a guy that could lead that team to the Stanley Cup. We'll see what happens, but he's the #1 center that I think the New York Rangers desperately need right now. But now we're going to move on to the second potential Jack Eichel trade, the second mock trade as well, and we're going to go to the second team that has been reportedly interested in Jack Eichel recently, that being the Los Angeles Kings. And the Kings have a lot of potential, I think, to land Jack Eichel in the future. Obviously, their trade offer will be a lot more future, a lot more pick, a lot more prospect-oriented than the New York Rangers. You're not going to see a guy like Ryan Strome go the other way, but I do think the LA Kings have a lot of potential to get Jack Eichel, and they could still easily keep guys like Quinton Byfield and still pull a trade off. Now, I'm going to go to the mock trade here and just work our way through it. For the LA Kings, they will acquire Jack Eichel. In exchange for the Buffalo Sabres from the LA Kings, they'll get Alex Turcotte, Gabriel Velarde, Tobias Bjornfot, Cale Clegg, Michael Anderson, a 2021 first-round pick, and a 2022 second-round pick. Now, there's no absolute bangers like Capo Caco, for instance, but Alex Turcotte, I think, has potential to be a top 6 center in the league. You got guys like Gabriel Velarde, who are in the NHL now and have potential to be a top 6 player. Tobias Bjornfot, who could be a top 4 D-man in the league. Same thing with Cale Clegg if he develops that way. Michael Anderson could be that guy as well. But you have a 2021 first-round pick, which I think is huge, especially for the LA Kings. They're on a little bit of a win streak right now, and if they do feel confident, they continue to win in the next couple months, we could see potentially a Jack Eichel trade that way. We'll see, and depending on where they land in the 2021 draft also, they could be flexible enough to give away that pick, and that be a big part of that Jack Eichel trade. But honestly, for the LA Kings, I think it would be a pretty amazing trade for them. If they were able to get Jack Eichel as a first-line center, then you have Quinton Byfield as a second-line center for the future. Almost nothing matters at that point. That type of duo is almost too electric to not have, and you have 2 second overall picks as your top 2 centers. Not too bad, and those 2 guys would absolutely lead that franchise to a lot of winning. Now, honestly, for the Buffalo Sabres, I'm not sure if this trade is as good as the New York one, but in terms of surplus, I think you get more quantity than quality in this trade. Guys like Turcotte, Velarde, you got 2 fantastic forwards there, potentially some great defensive talent in Bjornfot, Clegg, and Anderson. You got a first-round pick this year, then a second-round pick in 2022, which is a fantastic draft as well. I think there's a lot to look forward to if the Buffalo Sabres do pull a trade like that off. I do think the LA Kings would likely win that trade if it does go like this, but that is a lot of prospects to take hold of, and that would instantly make their prospect pool one of the better ones in the entire NHL. Now we're going to go on to the third destination, potentially for Jack Eichel, and the third team that I think could trade for Jack Eichel as well. We're going to go to a team that I think doesn't really get talked about too much in the Jack Eichel sweepstakes, but I think makes a lot of sense in terms of a team that needs a bona fide first-line center and has assets to give it up, that being the Calgary Flames. Now, I think Calgary would be a super fascinating team to get Jack Eichel. If just in the first place, I do think they need an upgrade in the first center spot. I think Monahan is a very, very solid second-line center, but not a guy that can truly lead them as a number 1. Jack Eichel is a different story, though, and him combined with Johnny Gaudreau and Matthew Tkachuk could be an amazing All-American first line that I think would absolutely dominate. There's a lot of reasons why I think Calgary would want to go after Jack Eichel. I think just in terms of their offense and in terms of their fit, it makes way too much sense, but also in terms of prospects, they have a lot to give up. Nobody that's a top 5 pick or anything, but a lot of surplus, a lot of depth, and a lot of fantastic prospects that I think the Buffalo Sabres would like to add. Now, when it comes to the actual package here, I think one of the big things that will happen with the Buffalo Sabres, at least, is that they will end up bringing Milan Lucic in. I think this is a big part of this trade because Calgary really doesn't have that much cap space, and with Milan Lucic, obviously, in his anchor of a contract, I think that would likely have to get moved if we do see a Jack Eichel trade. But when it comes to the prospects involved, I think there's quite a few that the Buffalo Sabres would definitely be interested in. Starting off with the Milan Lucic thing, of course, I think Calgary will kind of have to give that up and give up some more prospects on top of that to have to give up Milan Lucic and how the Buffalo Sabres bring that on. But in terms of the actual trade itself, for the Calgary Flames, they'll receive Jack Eichel, and for the Buffalo Sabres, they'll acquire Milan Lucic, Connor Zary, Dylan Dubé, Yusuf Alamaki, Dustin Wolf, Jacob Pelletier, a 2021 first-rounder, a 2022 first-rounder, and a 2022 second-rounder. Now, this is easily, when it comes to the mock trades, the most spread out and the most amount of assets given in a trade, but I think for the Calgary Flames, they're going to have to make do with what they got. They don't have any top prospects like an Alex Turcotte or a Capo Caco or Nils Lundqvist, but they got a lot of prospects who are in the upper average range that I think could definitely serve the Buffalo Sabres well. Now, personally, it's a lot of surplus, and I'm not sure if the Buffalo Sabres will get the investment on their return here, but you got great overall forwards in Zary, Dubé, you got a goaltender of the future in Dustin Wolf, who I think is one of the most underrated goalie prospects in the league. You got guys like Valimaki, who could be big-time top 4 D-man, and you got 2 first-round picks on top top of that. I think this is a lot for the Calgary Flames to give up depth-wise and overall, but you do get rid of the Milan Lucic contract. You get Jack Eichel. You get a bona fide first-line center and a guy that could absolutely lead a team into the promised land. For me, if I'm Calgary, I absolutely do that trade, and you get Jack Eichel and be pretty content with it, honestly. But next up, we're going to go on to the fourth potential destination for Jack Eichel, and the fourth team that I think could trade for Jack Eichel. This is a team that is also kind of under the radar, kind of like the Calgary Flames, but a team that I think would be super interesting with Jack Eichel going forward, that being the Anaheim Ducks. Now, I don't think the Anaheim Ducks will want to trade this player, but I think it will kind of have to happen. I don't think they're trading Jamie Drysdale, but I do think they'll have to trade Trevor Zegras. And I think this will be the big part of an Anaheim Ducks Jack Eichel trade. For the actual trade itself, to the Anaheim Ducks, they will receive Jack Eichel and Kyle Okposo. And going to the Buffalo Sabres will acquire Trevor Zegras, Rickard Rakell, Josh Mahura, Sam Steele, and a 2021 second-round pick. Now, the big thing for Anaheim, they don't give any first-round picks up, but they do have to give up Zegras. They do have to give up Rakell, Mahura, and Sam Steele. So some first-round talent there, but no future first-round picks, which with how the Anaheim Ducks are trending, I think is the main part of a deal like that. Now, the big part of this trade is Trevor Zegras, and this is a guy who I think is one of the best, if not the best prospect in the league right now in terms of guys that haven't played NHL games yet. This is a guy that is absolutely legit, absolutely dynamic, and the Buffalo Sabres, I don't even think, can mess him up, just like Jack Eichel before him, but he's absolutely a first-line forward and a guy who will be dominant. You also got Rickard Rakell, who's been really solid this year in terms of overall play, and he's a guy that I think can be a top 6 forward as well when he's on his game. You got Mahura, who I think could slot into a middle pairing, potentially on a defense someday if he continues to progress. You got Sam Steele, who's kind of been snake bitten with Anaheim and hasn't really gotten going too much with them, but with the Buffalo Sabres, who knows? And then you got that 2021 second-round pick, but really the big parts are Trevor Zegras and Rickard Rakell, and also the Buffalo Sabres, or they do end up taking on the Kyle Okposo contract, which I think will lessen the value that Anaheim has to give up. I don't know if Anaheim will actually go after Jack Eichel because I think he might be a little bit too old for what they're going for with this current rebuild, and giving up Trevor Zegras will obviously hurt a lot. But for the Anaheim Ducks, that's what it's going to need to take. That's what it's going to have to happen. It's going to be either Zegras or Drysdale, and I don't see them giving up Drysdale because he's really the only bona fide great defensive prospect in that system. Meanwhile, for Trevor Zegras, I think in some way he's more expendable, but he's absolutely amazing, and I think the Buffalo Sabres will definitely get a fantastic forward in him at the very least. But now we're going to go to the final and last team that I think could make a serious offer for Jack Eichel to the Buffalo Sabres and could make a trade work. Now, it is kind of out of nowhere, but I think this team does have potential to make a trade happen. I'm going to go now to the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, this is a trade that I think is probably the most obscure out of the trades I list today, but if the Blackhawks truly want Jack Eichel, I think this is what's going to need to happen in order to make a trade work for the Chicago Blackhawks. For a trade here today to the Buffalo Sabres, actually to the Chicago Blackhawks, is Jack Eichel. And going the other side to the Buffalo Sabres, sorry, it's cold out here, so I'm sniffling. Going to the Buffalo Sabres, in exchange for Jack Eichel, Kirby Dach will be the main piece of the trade. Lucas Reichel will be added onto it, defenseman Alec Regula as well on top of it, and a 2021 first-round pick. Now, I think this fills a lot of holes for the Buffalo Sabres in a Jack Eichel trade. You get Kirby Dach, who could be a first-line center for them in the future if he does progress the way he's progressed so far. You also got fantastic prospects in Lucas Reichel, who I think are super underrated offensively. You have now Lucas Reichel and JJ Peterka, two dynamic German prospects from the same draft on top of each other in the same pool. I think that would be great for them. And you also got Alec Regula, who I think could become an NHL defenseman someday. And you also got that 2021 first rounder, which with the way the Chicago Blackhawks are progressing right now, could be a lesser pick, probably more in like the 15 or 20 range perhaps if they do make the playoffs. But I think this is still a pick that would have a lot of value for the Buffalo Sabres. But in terms of the big pieces, it's really Kirby Dach that centers this trade. I think for the Buffalo Sabres, it's Kirby Dach or bust in a Jack Eichel trade. I think that's the big key that needs to happen. I think there's some other prospects that could fill that role. Maybe Boquist is the big piece of the trade, but honestly, I see them going for more forward firepower, looking to a guy like Kirby Dach as the main piece, and honestly, I think that's the only way a trade happens with Chicago. That's the main guy I'd be looking for in a Jack Eichel trade if I was the Buffalo Sabres, and if they aren't able to get that package, I think they say no, but I think the Chicago Blackhawks, if they're given the option of getting Jack Eichel, Hey, it's Jack Eichel, and the chances of Graviteh being that good are still slim, even though he is looking very good right now. But Jack Eichel is absolutely legit and could lead that rebuild into some very good success. We'll see if that happens. I doubt they give up Graviteh, but I think that's what's going to need to happen if Chicago does make a deal here. So that'll be it for today, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, hit that notification bell, share this video with your friends, click the card up there, wherever it might be. I am having to record in the backyard now because there's a guy a few houses down that decided right when I wanted to record the outro to shovel some freaking snow and make the biggest noise I think I've ever seen. But thanks so much for watching. Appreciate all, of course, and I'll see you in the next video or stream. Goodbye.